Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sleeping World History Radio. Let us guide you through the deep forests of history, softly leading you into a peaceful sleep. Tonight, we will quietly trace the grand history of Britain, from its birth to the present day. As you prepare for bed, why not listen to the tales of times gone by and embark on a historical journey in your dreams? Now, slowly close your eyes as we guide you on a journey beyond time and space. Chapter 1: The Formation of the Anglo-Saxon Kingdoms and Unified England. The story of England begins in the distant past, when small Anglo-Saxon kingdoms first took root in the land. These kingdoms, sometimes clashing and other times uniting, laid the foundation for modern England. In the late 9th century, England was threatened by Viking invasions, particularly in 878. The Kingdom of Wessex, led by King Alfred the Great, faced a dire crisis as it came under Viking attack. King Alfred initially suffered defeat and retreated to the marshlands of Somerset, but he gathered loyal followers, reorganized his army, and prepared for the decisive Battle of Edington. In this battle, Alfred defeated the Viking leader Guthrum and concluded the Treaty of Wedmore. This treaty formally recognized the Viking-controlled territories and brought temporary peace to England. With this victory, Alfred the Great set out to unify the various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. His grandson, Athelstan, conquered Northumbria in 927, successfully unifying all of England. During Athelstan's reign, England was first recognized as a single kingdom, though internal divisions and rebellions continued to simmer. In the early 11th century, King Sweyn of Denmark conquered England, and his son Knut became King of England, bringing England temporarily under Danish rule. However, with the end of the Knut dynasty in 1042, Edward the Confessor ascended the throne, restoring the Anglo-Saxon royal line. His reign was brief and fraught with turmoil, but his succession would lead to another major turning point. In 1066, following the death of Edward the Confessor, England plunged into chaos once again. William, Duke of Normandy, claimed the throne, leading to a conflict with Harold II. In October of that year, William defeated Harold II at the Battle of Hastings, conquering England. His victory marked a significant turning point in England's history. The Norman Conquest brought profound changes to England's social structure, introducing the feudal system influenced by France and establishing new norms in land ownership and nobility. William the Conqueror consolidated his control over England, appointing Norman nobles as local rulers. This new governance system further advanced the unification of England. In the aftermath of the Norman Conquest, England maintained close ties with France while gradually developing its own unique culture and identity. Significant transformations occurred in language, law, architecture, and other fields. From the era of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms to the Norman Conquest, England gradually developed a sense of nationhood and established a distinct identity. In this chapter, we explored how England unified and carved out its own path while absorbing external influences. In the next chapter, we will delve into how this unified nation grew and evolved into a powerful empire. Chapter 2: The Norman Conquest and the Introduction of Feudalism. With his victory at the Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror became the ruler of England. His reign profoundly shaped England's political, social, and cultural landscape. To strengthen his power, William invited numerous Norman nobles to England and granted them large estates throughout the country in exchange for their loyalty. The introduction of the feudal system drastically changed England's social structure. The nobles who owned land exercised significant control over the peasants living on their estates. William also commissioned the creation of the Domesday Book, a detailed survey of land ownership and assets across England. This record was an essential tool for reinforcing royal authority. The Norman Conquest also had a significant impact on the English language. The nobles from Normandy spoke French, which became the language of the upper classes, while the common people continued to speak Old English. This dual language environment is one reason why many words in modern English are derived from French, particularly in the areas of law and aristocracy. After William's death, the struggle for the English throne continued, but his successors worked to maintain the connection between Normandy and England, leading to prolonged tension with France. In the 12th century, the Angevin dynasty emerged, with Henry II ascending the throne and further consolidating the power of the English kingdom. Henry II also initiated legal reforms, establishing a unified legal system across England, which later became known as common law. Henry I's reign was marked by conflict with the church, especially with his former friend, Archbishop Thomas Becket. This escalating tension led to Becket's assassination, which had a profound effect on the balance of power between the Church and the monarchy in England. The reigns of Henry I's sons, especially Richard I and King John, were marked by continuous warfare with France, which strained England's finances. This led to the signing of the Magna Carta during King John's reign. Signed in 1215, the Magna Carta was a crucial document that limited royal authority and protected the rights of the nobles. It laid the foundation for the future English constitution. Over the centuries following the Norman Conquest, England experienced wars with France, internal conflicts, and religious strife, yet gradually established itself as a strong nation-state. During this period, England solidified its social structure and legal system through feudalism and its relationship with the Church. As a result, England gradually formed a unified national identity. In the next chapter, we will explore the 100 Years' War and the Wars of the Roses, examining how these conflicts shaped England's political and social landscape. Chapter 3: The 100 Years' War and the Wars of the Roses. In the early 14th century, tensions between England and France were steadily rising. At this time, the English king held vast territories within France, leading to frequent conflicts with the French crown. In 1337, King Edward III of England claimed the French throne, sparking the 100 Years' War. This long conflict between the Kingdom of France and the Kingdom of England lasted for 116 years. Early in the war, the English forces were dominant, achieving significant victories at battles such as Carsaille and Agincourt. Through the effective use of longbowmen, the English army initially overwhelmed the French and controlled much of the war's early course. However, France gradually regained strength, and the heroic figure of Joan of Arc emerged. Under her leadership, the French army won a series of victories, reversing the tide of the war. Joan of Arc's appearance boosted French morale and ultimately became a driving force behind France's victory in the 100 Years' War. In 1453, the war ended with France's victory, and England lost most of its territories in France. The end of the 100 Years' War heightened political tensions within England, particularly over the issue of royal succession, leading to the Wars of the Roses, a civil war between the houses of Lancaster and York. The Wars of the Roses lasted from 1455 to 1487, involving fierce battles over the English throne. The conflict drew in supporters of both houses and spread war across the nation. In the early stages of the war, the Yorkists were dominant, especially when Edward IV ascended the throne in 1461. However, the civil war continued, with the balance of power constantly shifting. Ultimately, Henry Tudor of the Lancastrians defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, becoming King Henry VII of England. This battle marked the end of the House of York and the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. Henry VII worked to rebuild England, devastated by the Civil War, and sought to restore stability within the country. He strengthened ties with the nobility through marriage alliances and solidified the foundation of the Tudor dynasty. The end of the Wars of the Roses ushered in a new era for England. While royal authority was strengthened and national unity progressed, new political challenges also emerged. The Wars of the Roses left deep scars on English society, with many nobles losing their lives and the economy and society suffering significant damage. However, through this war, England advanced toward centralization and laid the groundwork for the next era. Under the reign of Henry VII, England regained stability and prepared for the transformative changes that lay ahead in the coming era, such as the Reformation and the Age of Exploration. The experience of the Wars of the Roses deeply influenced later English political culture, emphasizing the importance of balancing royal authority and noble power. In the next chapter, we will explore the Reformation and the expansion of the British Empire, examining how England grew into a significant global power during this era. Chapter 4: The English Reformation and the Expansion of the British Empire. In the early 16th century, England was swept up in the wave of the Reformation, which began as a challenge to the authority of the Catholic Church and quickly spread across the country. A turning point in the English Reformation came with King Henry V's marital issues. He sought to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon in order to marry Anne Boleyn, but when the Pope refused to grant his request, Henry took bold action. In 1534, Henry VIII declared the establishment of the Church of England, breaking away from the Roman Catholic Church. By doing so, he became the supreme head of the Church of England, marking the birth of the Anglican Church. This religious upheaval caused major turmoil in England, with conflicts between Catholics and Protestants intensifying, leading to widespread persecution, notably under Henry V's daughter, Mary I, known as Bloody Mary. Catholics regained power, and Protestants faced severe repression. However, after Mary I's death, Elizabeth I ascended the throne, and England once again charted a course as a Protestant nation. Elizabeth I promoted religious tolerance while solidifying the status of the Church of England. Under Elizabeth I's reign, England regained political stability and began to look outward. As tensions with Spain escalated, England accelerated its maritime expansion, achieving victories such as the defeat of the Spanish Armada. The defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 showcased England's naval strength to the world and paved the way for England's growth into a global power. Elizabeth I also supported privateers known as the Sea Dogs, who attacked Spanish ships, helping to bolster England's finances. This strategy not only brought considerable resources to England but also facilitated the successful establishment of overseas colonies. England's maritime expansion led to the establishment of colonies in the Americas. In 1607, Jamestown was founded, becoming the first English colony in North America. The establishment of colonies across the Atlantic brought England new wealth and influence, but it also led to conflicts with indigenous peoples, beginning a long history of confrontation. The success of colonial management encouraged England to pursue further expansion. The founding of the East India Company and the subsequent expansion into the Indian subcontinent extended England's influence into Asia. By the late 17th and early 18th centuries, England began to emerge as the British Empire. The wealth generated from trade with the colonies flowed into the homeland, and London solidified its position as the world's financial center. During this period, England engaged in numerous wars with other European nations, but by leveraging its naval and commercial power, England emerged victorious in many of these conflicts, further expanding its vast empire. The English Reformation and subsequent imperial expansion propelled England into a dominant global power. The foundations laid during this period would support the future glory of Britain. In the next chapter, we will explore the Puritan Revolution and the Glorious Revolution, examining how England evolved into a modern constitutional monarchy. Chapter 5: The Puritan Revolution and the Glorious Revolution. In the early 17th century, religious and political tensions in England were on the rise. Under the reign of James I, the doctrine of the divine right of kings was emphasized, asserting the king's absolute authority, which inevitably led to conflicts with Parliament. When James I's son, Charles I, ascended the throne, these conflicts deepened. Charles I sought to rule without Parliament, leading to disputes over issues such as taxation and religious policy. Charles I attempted to levy taxes without Parliament's consent and forced religious reforms in Scotland and Ireland, sparking widespread discontent at home and abroad, eventually leading to the outbreak of the Puritan Revolution. In 1642, civil war erupted between Charles I and the parliamentary forces. The Parliamentary Army, supported by Puritans and led by Oliver Cromwell, waged fierce battles against the Royalists. The war dragged on for several years, but the parliamentary forces eventually triumphed. In 1649, Charles I was tried, found guilty, and executed, leading to the temporary abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of a republic. Oliver Cromwell assumed power as the leader of the Republic, ruling as the Lord Protector. His governance was marked by strict Puritan ethics and harsh suppression of opposition. Cromwell's rule is also known for its severe military campaigns in Scotland and Ireland. He implemented ruthless strategies to suppress uprisings in Ireland and subjugate Scotland. However, Cromwell's autocratic rule generated widespread dissatisfaction. After his death, in 1660, Charles II was restored to the throne, and the monarchy was re-established, marking the Restoration period. After the Restoration, England regained political stability, but the accession of Charles I's successor, James II, a Catholic, reignited religious and political tensions. His policies led to widespread opposition from Parliament and the public. In 1688, Parliament deposed James II and invited the Protestant William III and Mary II to rule jointly. This event, known as the Glorious Revolution, was notable for its relatively bloodless transition of power. The Glorious Revolution was a crucial turning point in the establishment of England's constitutional monarchy. The Bill of Rights, enacted in 1689, strengthened Parliament's powers and required royal actions to have parliamentary approval. This new political framework had a profound impact on English political culture, leading England toward a modern constitutional monarchy. With the success of the Glorious Revolution, England became one of the first European countries to establish a stable constitutional government. This system would later support the prosperity and expansion of the British Empire. Through the Puritan Revolution and the Glorious Revolution, England overcame religious and political turmoil and solidified its foundation as a strong state. This allowed England to further expand its influence on the world stage. In the next chapter, we will explore the Industrial Revolution and the Victorian era, examining how England led the world in industrialization and achieved unprecedented prosperity. Chapter 6: The Industrial Revolution and the Victorian Era. In the late 18th century, England became the birthplace of the world's first industrial revolution. The invention of the steam engine and the introduction of spinning machines led to a dramatic increase in productivity, rapidly transforming England into an industrial society. The Industrial Revolution began with the cotton industry. Innovations like Richard Arkwright's waterframe and James Watt's improved steam engine enabled mass production in factories, leading to a surge in demand for labor. As industrialization progressed, urbanization accelerated, with many rural inhabitants migrating to cities in search of work. Cities expanded rapidly, giving rise to industrial centers like London, Manchester, and Birmingham. The Industrial Revolution also ignited a transportation revolution, with the development of railways greatly enhancing the movement of goods and people, connecting domestic and international markets. The Stockton and Darlington Railway, opened in 1825, stands as a symbol of this transformative era. The expansion of the railway network further invigorated England's economy, expanding domestic markets and boosting international trade. England became the center of the global economy by importing raw materials from around the world and exporting manufactured goods. The Industrial Revolution also had significant social impacts. The formation of a working class, along with deteriorating working conditions, became major issues, leading to the growth of labor movements. The Chartist movement and the formation of trade unions are examples of this response. In the mid-19th century, Queen Victoria ascended the throne, ushering in what is known as the Victorian era. Her long reign 1837 to 1901 was a period of both prosperity and social change for England. The Victorian era was also the zenith of the British Empire. England expanded its colonies across the globe, becoming known as the Empire on which the sun never sets. Colonies in India, Canada, Australia, and various parts of Africa were integrated into the empire. During this time, England saw significant cultural and scientific advancements. Notable examples include Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and Michael Faraday's discoveries in electromagnetism, which had a profound impact worldwide. Politically, Queen Victoria's reign was marked by stability. She fulfilled her role as a constitutional monarch, overseeing a government led by Parliament. This balance between royal authority and parliamentary power ensured a stable governance system. However, the Victorian era also faced numerous social challenges. Rapid urbanization led to overcrowded cities, poor public health, and increasing poverty, prompting social reform movements. Efforts to improve labor conditions and expand access to education became key issues of the time. In the latter part of the Victorian era, the movement to improve women's rights gained momentum. The suffragette movement, in particular, sought to secure voting rights for women, with many women raising their voices for political equality. After Queen Victoria's death, the British Empire continued to dominate the world, but as the 20th century dawned, new challenges emerged. The expansion of the empire heightened international tensions, ultimately leading to the World Wars. The Industrial Revolution and the Victorian era were times when England led global industrialization and enjoyed great prosperity. However, behind this success lay numerous social problems, which would become the driving force for change in the next era. In the next chapter, we will explore the two world wars and the dissolution of the British Empire, examining how Britain faced global upheavals and entered a new era. Chapter 7: The Two World Wars and the Dissolution of the Empire. At the dawn of the 20th century, Britain remained a dominant global power, but tensions were rising on the European continent. These tensions would eventually lead to the unprecedented conflict of the First World War. In 1914, World War I broke out, with Britain joining the Allied powers to fight against the Central Powers, including Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This war claimed millions of lives and left deep scars across Europe. During the war, British forces engaged in brutal battles on the Western Front, including the infamous Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Ypres, both resulting in massive casualties. Trench warfare became the primary strategy, with soldiers enduring harsh conditions on the front lines. When the war finally ended in 1918, Britain, as one of the victorious powers, participated in the Paris Peace Conference. However, the economic and social burdens of the war were immense, leading to widespread discontent at home. Following World War I, the British Empire retained its vast territories, but independence movements within the empire gained momentum. In particular, India and Ireland saw intensified struggles for independence. In 1922, the Irish Free State was established, marking Ireland's independence from Britain. Meanwhile, in India, under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, a nonviolent resistance movement began to pave the way for independence. Domestically, the post-war period in Britain was marked by economic recession and severe unemployment. The discontent of the working class grew, culminating in the General Strike of 1926, which further energized the labor movement. In 1939, the outbreak of World War II once again embroiled Britain in a global conflict, this time against the Axis powers led by Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. In the early stages of World War II, Britain faced a dire situation, especially during the London Blitz, where German air raids caused significant civilian casualties. Nevertheless, the British people showed remarkable resilience, enduring the hardships of war. Under the determined leadership of Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Britain joined the Allies in launching a counter-offensive, achieving victories such as the Normandy landings. Ultimately, Germany surrendered in 1945, bringing an end to the war in Europe. After World War II, the British Empire quickly dissolved. War fatigue and economic strain weakened Britain's ability to hold on to its colonies, leading many to gain independence. In 1947, India, a key symbol of the empire, achieved independence, delivering a major blow to Britain's global influence. As the empire disintegrated, Britain sought a new international role. During the Cold War, Britain forged a close alliance with the United States and contributed to Western defense as a member of NATO. Domestically, the post-war period saw the rise of the Labour government, which laid the foundation for the welfare state, including the establishment of the National Health Service (NHS). This led to significant improvements in social security and the quality of life for British citizens. From the 1950s onward, Britain's influence on the global stage gradually waned, exemplified by events like the Suez Crisis. However, its cultural impact remained strong, with the British invasion of the 1960s spreading British culture worldwide. Having endured 2 world wars and the fall of its empire, Britain began to lose its global superpower status. However, it remained influential internationally. Next, we'll explore Britain's role in the European Union and the Brexit process, tracing the country's modern evolution. Chapter 8: EU Membership and Brexit. After World War II, Britain sought to define its role within the new international order. On the European continent, efforts were underway to foster economic and political cooperation among nations to prevent a repeat of the devastation of war. In the 1950s, led by France and Germany, European countries began moving toward the creation of the European Economic Community (EEC). Initially, Britain kept its distance from these developments, prioritizing traditional trade partnerships within the British Commonwealth. However, by the late 1950s and early 1960s, Britain's economy stagnated, and it became clear that the country was falling behind the rapidly growing European economy. In response, Britain began to seek membership in the EEC. Britain applied for EEC membership in 1963 and again in 1967, but both applications were vetoed by French President Charles de Gaulle, who believed that Britain was too dependent on the United States and that its membership would undermine European integration. After de Gaulle's resignation, Britain's negotiations progressed, and in 1973, the country officially joined the EEC. This allowed Britain to access European markets and become a part of the growing European integration. Even after joining the EEC, debates over Britain's relationship with Europe persisted. A referendum was held in 1975 to decide whether Britain should remain in the EEC, and the result favored staying, but skepticism about the European project remained strong in the country. In 1992, the Maastricht Treaty was signed, transforming the EEC into the European Union (EU) and deepening European integration. While Britain participated in the EU, it remained cautious about adopting the euro. In the 2000s, issues such as immigration and economic policy within the EU led to growing dissatisfaction in Britain, particularly after the 2008 global financial crisis. Concerns over austerity measures and immigration surged. In 2013, then Prime Minister David Cameron promised to renegotiate Britain's relationship with the EU and hold a referendum on membership based on the outcome of those negotiations. This sparked intense debate between those favoring EU membership and those advocating for Brexit. In 2016, the Brexit referendum was held, resulting in 52% voting to leave the EU and 48% voting to remain, a narrow and divisive outcome that shocked both Britain and the international community. After the Brexit decision, Britain and the EU began difficult negotiations, facing numerous challenges in reaching an agreement. Key issues included the Irish border and trade arrangements. On January 31, 2020, Britain officially left the EU, marking the beginning of a new chapter as an independent nation. However, the economic and social impacts of Brexit remain significant challenges. Brexit deepened political divisions within Britain, with renewed calls for Scottish independence. Additionally, Britain's relationship with the EU remains a complex and ongoing issue. At the same time, Brexit presents an opportunity for Britain to redefine its international role. The country is exploring free trade agreements with the United States and other nations, aiming to rebuild global economic relationships. Britain now stands at a historical crossroads. How the country's choice to leave the EU will shape its future remains to be seen, and the post-Brexit era presents both challenges and opportunities as Britain seeks to evolve and influence the world. How did you enjoy the journey through British history? We hope you found solace in these tales of times past, from ancient stories to modern events. At Sleeping World History Radio, we will continue to bring you nightly historical stories to help you drift peacefully to sleep. If you enjoyed this program, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. Your support helps us enhance our future broadcasts. We look forward to seeing you in the next chapter of history. Sweet dreams, and good night.